Hello, everyone. I'm Linda Nickell, and welcome to the Happiness Hour. If you'd like to join us in the room, you'll find the schedule for upcoming sessions at lindanickell.com/happiness hour. And while you're there, please consider signing up for our monthly newsletter. Tonight's guest is Chase Fountain. Chase is the chief photographer for Texas Parks and Wildlife. His images have been published in an array of respected publications that include the New York Times, National Geographic Traveler, Southern Living, and Texas Monthly. And that's just the short list. Chase is a recipient of a Lone Star Emmy from the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and he was inducted Muy Grande Hall of Fame for his contributions to wildlife conservation. You can connect with Chase through his website at imagesbychase@smugmug.com. And tonight's presentation, Woods and Waters. Chase will draw us into the intersection of outdoor recreation and environmental stewardship, inspiring a deeper connection with the natural world. Welcome to the Happiness Hour, Chase.
Thank you very much.
What did I miss?
I know, I think you did great. That's, what else?
I
But
can't say movie anymore. I used to
moving
be able
around
to.
there. Yes.
Yes, it's one of my favorite plates at a Mexican restaurant in my little hometown, and I've lost it. I've been gone too long.
Yeah,
Um,
that award was a real surprise to me when they notified me about that. I said, I deer hunt a little bit, but they usually recognize these big, hunters. And they said, no, it's because of my, because we did a story on them about 10 years ago, and it brought a lot of attention to that program. So it just helped them out. So I think they do that to journalists every now and then to.
okay,
It worked.
take it.
Loved it.
Take it.
Loved
It fills the shelves of pretty cool things and conversation pieces.
it. Does.
So, um, if I didn't miss anything, if there's something you want to throw out, this is a good opportunity to fill in the gaps, or if you want to get started, you're welcome to do
I think
that.
we're pretty good. I have 40 slides. We have a lot to cover. One thing I want to tell people, if I love questions, by all means, throw them in there if I can direct them. It sounds like a lot of you guys, or most of you guys, are pretty advanced photographers at this point. So I'm gonna kind of skim over the not so sexy part, I guess. It's in my presentation, but it will just go right through it. But by all means, if there's something that you need me to follow up on, bring it up. All right. So I believe this is, it says it's an honor to capture Texas wild things and wild places and share their beauty to all. 100% true. People tell me all the time that I've got the best job ever. Uh, Honestly, I have the best job ever. I get to explore all of this great state 365 days a year. Obviously, I'm not on the road all the time, but this might kind of, well, let me back up. So this is a lot of words here. I'm not going to go everything. Linda went over pretty much everything. I do have a Bachelor of Applied Arts and Science degree from Stephen F. Austin State University. That's in East Texas, if anybody doesn't know. I do have 30 years of experience, both private and public sectors. I've been with Texas Parks and Wildlife for 20 of those years. I am now the chief photographer for the agency. It was Earl Nottingham. He was he on the show before?
No, he has not. He was I mentioned him earlier because he did the Texas Photography
Okay.
Festival. Yeah, but he has not done. Mm-mm.
And as Linda mentioned, I did win an Academy Lone Star Emmy and the movie. Now you got me saying it. The movie Grande Hall of Fame. All right.
Thank you
So
for that.
people, like most photographers, want to know what I'm shooting. I'm old school, guys. I still use the Nikon. I do have the Nikon Z7 when they first came out. I absolutely hated it. I don't ever use it. It has dust growing on it. I did talk to Nikon at the time, saying because it wasn't that responsive. But I did look at the Z9 that is out now. I don't know if anybody is in the group, raise your hand, say, yay, that was a fantastic camera. Uh,
I got
uh,
it.
Looking at it. It's pricey, but that's fine. All the good stuff is, but typically this is my go-to equipment that I carry with me at all time. If you look at the shot of the camera gear, that's actually the back of my SUV my state vehicle. I have a truck vault in the back of it, and they're full time. It's locks, it's sealed, it's safe, and I just goes with me wherever I go. So it's a great tool to have. But as you can see, I have all your standard lenses. Probably most of you guys have that equipment already. Um, so for Parks and Wildlife, if, most of y'all, like a lot of y'all aren't from Texas, which is kind of neat. I didn't expect this. This is kind of neat. But Texas Parks and Wildlife, we basically we provide resources and protections for all things wild. So if it's off the pavement, Parks and Wildlife is they're taking stewardship of it. We have game wardens, we have inland fisheries, coastal fisheries, biologists, and all the support divisions that helps that. So that's kind of our job. So we have 3,000 employees, and my function for within the agency is to support all those divisions. So it's not all wildlife. It's all kinds of stuff. It's marketing. It's uh, news. You know, I'd go with first responders. I go with the game wardens during natural disasters. I cover all that kind of stuff. It's boring stuff like, you know, award ceremony. I'm doing one tomorrow, you know, getting on the stage just like a graduation. So I wear a lot of different hats. So there's a lot to do. Keeps it interesting though. Just for fun, one day I started drawing where all the roads I rode or drove around in Texas while working. I estimate I've been well over 600,000 miles since I've started working there. Uh, I honestly don't think this is a complete list. There's some smaller roads I've obviously hit, but uh, that's Texas is a big state, 268,000 square miles, and I've been to pretty much every square inch of it. Um, all you guys are probably during every presentation, they bring this up, the exposure triangle and know your settings. It's not sexy, um, but you got to know it because that, I'm going to go to the next slide to kind of illustrate. So I call learn, practice, and prepare. Um, all you guys sound like you're pretty advanced photographers, so this is nothing new to you. But if you're not, by all means, obviously read your manual, get on YouTube, figure your camera out. There's so much content out there to learn your equipment. I personally been in this business for a long time, and I still get on YouTube, and these young whippersnappers like, oh, I didn't know that. You know, especially with the new techniques and I use Photoshop. If anybody wants to know, I don't really use Lightroom. I have it, but I've been stuck there forever, and that's what I'm comfortable. I use Bridge and Photoshop. Those are my two primary workflow software pieces of softwares. But for those who don't have a lot of experience, I do recommend doing these things. Figure out what your digital workflow is going to be. Understand the difference between RAW and JPEGs. I don't think I need to go into that too much, but obviously a RAW file has a lot more information in your file, gives you a lot more latitude and exposure, and be able to work with it in post-production. And as far as your basic composition, your rule of thirds and leading lines, obviously learn those. That is not most of you guys have already probably know that in the back of your head, but by all means, if you're doing it, it's something that you need to really study and understand. And one thing I do recommend if you don't have a lot of experience shooting, practice around the house, make your mistakes at home. Don't spend all that money going on a workshop or going on a tour somewhere and just fumbling it there. I mean, you spend a lot of money traveling, getting to where you want to go. So learn it at home, figure it out, push yourself a little bit, give yourself an assignment, saying, okay, hey, I want to do an assignment on what is a every day in the life of a family at home, and then try to tell it like a journalist and see if you can photograph it. You got to push yourself a little bit. And obviously, before you go on a shoot, like I do, I go to Google Earth. I look at the terrain. I want to know where the sun's coming up, going down. They obviously make apps on your phone. Pills is a great app. Raise a hand. Do you use Pills? Anybody? Linda, you familiar with that app? So
Yes.
yeah, everybody knows it. Yeah, of course. And of course, plan for the weather. If you have the choice, plan for it. Um, so one of the departments I work for is we have Texas Parks and Wildlife Magazine. It's been around for a while. It's been around since 1942, came out in December, right at the height of right when World War II was starting. And ironically, that was a good time for the magazine to come out, come to find out, because a lot of the servicemen and women needed an escape from reality. And the magazine gave that to them. So we started off with roughly about 6,422 subscriptions. We're roughly around over 200,000 now, with a lot more with being online. But I do recommend getting a subscription, wink, wink, if you want to support Texas Parks and Wildlife and learn a little bit about what I do and all the cool stuff that Texas has to offer. By all means, get a subscription. And while I'm thinking about it, Linda, we talked about this. I'm going to have some links on the YouTube channel that
Mhm.
will support all this. I'm also going to leave a link to this presentation so you can go back and look at it. So you don't have to worry about screenshots if you don't want to or whatever. Just simply just wait for the link and then you can download it or look it up. So here's if anybody, uh, who was it? Somebody, is anybody here working on a magazine as well or does assignments? Anybody? Linda, you might know.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Okay, that's fine.
It
So,
might be.
so, so this is a shot of our magazine department a few years ago. That's Earl, actually. That was a while ago. He's not there anymore. But we get together weekly, monthly, and quarterly to discuss a variety of aspects of making the editorial, what we're going to be doing. We put up the editorial calendar. We talk about it, and then we try to plan up to 18 months in advance. And the reason that is being so, if we're doing an article that's going to come out in December, I can't shoot it in July because it won't look like what's going on in December. If we're doing like, well, let's just be real, very specific, a deer hunting photo shoot. In Texas, deer hunting starts in late October, goes through January, depending on what type of hunting it is, like bow hunting or rifle or whatever. But I, I can't, if I shoot it then, it's too early of a turnaround for me to be able to shoot it and get it in the magazine because it's in production 2 months before the magazine is published. Does that make sense to everybody? So I usually have to work a year in advance on my assignments. However, there's a lot of times I'm having to do a last minute shoot to cover some gaps. Assignments do change quickly because we're a state publication and legislature or the executive staff comes in or there's something that requires us to change the content of the magazine for a variety of reasons. I won't go into too many specifics, but it can change, and so does my assignment, and it's on the fly real fast. It says I do 50 assignments. That's just for the magazine. For Texas Parks and Wildlife, I do roughly 150 assignments every year. Um, so this is what I do when I get the manuscript. This is for the magazine assignment. I look at the manuscript and I highlight all the visual elements because it's a written word, but I need to tell the picture in tell a story with pictures, of course, right? Um, and of course, I make the travel arrangements necessary. I need to call private landowners or whatever. There's a whole plethora of different reasons why, I need to make those arrangements. And obviously, I need to make sure I carry the right clothing and gear. My photo shoots in some cases are literally in the swamps of Caddo Lake to the mountains of El Paso. I mean, it just depends. The weather could be very dramatic and change quickly. And then I always go back to my photo editor and discuss again visually what she's thinking of so we're on the same page. And then since Texas is such a big state, if I'm heading out toward the Big Bend region, I look within the other divisions of the agency to see if there's something else that needs to be done while I'm out there. Because it's a long ways to travel out there and to say, oh, then I got to go back. That's no fun. Okay. Uh, so one thing I do, and if you're ever shooting editorial, this is kind of it's not written down, so you might want to write this down. I call it like the inverted pyramid or whatever. And the way you would shoot that sequence, for example, you need one, of course, it's not exactly one, but just one wide shot, just kind of like an overall panoramic shot, three or four medium type shots, and then 8 to 10 close-ups. So you're really trying to build that story. So it's important that you layer those images when shooting something. And that's same for video. So if any of you guys do video, if you're wanting to do that, make sure when you shoot a sequence, try to do it in those steps. These are just some of the publications, magazine covers that I've done. I've have anywhere between 5 to 25 images per magazine over the last 20 years. So, I mean, maybe more than that, hundreds. I mean, literally hundreds of images. Um, so this is important. Okay. This is the fun part. Some of you guys might want to get published. So if you want to make a screenshot of this one, go for it. But let me just kind of run down how this works. Okay. I'm not the person you talk to. Her name is Sonia Sommerfeld. She's our photo editor. She is the gatekeeper. She's the one you have to send the bottle of wine to or whatever. She's the one that'll get you in. She's pretty particular about what she wants and she'll let you know. Okay. Um, so this is online at the Texas Parks and Wildlife magazine page, or if you go online and you can download this PDF, there is a link down at the bottom of this page. But in a nutshell, basically, you're going to put them on a downloadable PDF, a downloadable FT. I can't think, a drive of some sort, through uh, Dropbox or something of that nature. So she'll be able to download these images. Don't send her a whole bunch. Be very specific. And and I don't have this written down. I wish I'd wrote this, but I'm going to really stress this. Your pictures need to be unique and different. And harder to get images are better. And for example, let's say we're doing a story on horned lizards. Okay. That's Well, let's say let me back up even a little bit more than that. If it's a threatened or endangered species and it's hard to find, if you want to get yourself published and if you have those the contacts to get imagery of stuff like that, um, I highly recommend it. Or find your niche. Some people are birders, some people are more herpetologist stuff. They like spiders, uh, or dragonflies or something. General beauty shots and landscape shots are great, but those are easy to come by. It's the more difficult stuff that will get you published a lot easier with us. Okay. And Sonia she'll put you on the wants list and you'll get an email in advance saying, hey, we're looking for this, this, and this. And then you'll provide those to her. And then we'll see if it happens. Okay. And this is our pay rate on the images if you happen to get published, and you'll work that out with the art department before publication. All right. Lee Hoy was on your show a few weeks ago, I believe. So he did this. It says preparation plus skill times patience equal luck. I just call it opportunity because you got to create your opportunity. So I do believe in preparations and the skill and definitely patience. That's something that you really need to, focus on to get that nice shot. So basically, if you're wanting to do wildlife, since we're talking about parks and wildlife, um, these are just here. I'm going to pop this all up. It's just like if y'all are birders or hunters or whatever, you need to understand the behaviors of those animals during that season of the year. And you need to make sure that you put yourself in the right position at the right time of day with the right kind of background to get that shot. Um, and that takes planning. Very seldom you get shots that um, or just organic, you just get lucky. I mean, yes, that can happen, but you really need to put yourself in a good position to make it happen. So most of you guys, sounds like you've already done stuff like that before. So nothing new here other than the fact that you just need to put yourself in the opportunity. Here's a pro tip. This is my thing. I didn't learn it from anybody else. This works for me, but when hand holding, if you're not using a tripod, your shutter speed needs to be at or faster than your focal length. Does that make sense to everybody? Uh, I know if you have a lens that can reduce the shake, that can help you out a little bit. You'll gain some speed on that. But as a general rule, if you're going to handhold, your shutter speed needs to be faster. Okay. All right. Here's some general wildlife shots that I've done in the past. The one on the left is at a ranch in South Texas. I have a name on the next slide. They do set up stands that put you in a good position to get some great shots. All the other ones, as I contradict myself, those were just organic. Those just happened on the fly. So just random beauty shots. Does anybody have any questions about these images before I go to the next slide? We're
No,
good?
you're good. You're good.
Okay. All right. So most of you guys have probably done photo workshops or tours. This is a list of folks that I do recommend that I've worked with. I know personally. Obviously, there's a lot more out there. I would love to hear from you guys if you want to let me know what's out there. But there's, the top portion of the slide are actual places or people you can talk to go to an actual workshop. The ones at the bottom are just suggestions of ideas to put you in a spot to do some nature or wildlife photography. Um, Texas State Parks is a great place to photograph wildlife because most of them are used to people, so they're more approachable. A lot of our state parks have bird blinds or viewing blinds of some sort. So that's a great place to set up. It's not very expensive. I would recommend getting if you do a lot of state parks, I recommend getting a state park pass. It's a one-time fee, and you get into the state parks for free after that. I think it's $70 for a pass, for an annual pass. Um, and like we have between 85 and 90 parks. So we're a big state with a lot of different ecological zones. So you can have your whole mix of a lot of fun. So all you folks that are from Michigan and the Carolinas or wherever you are, come on to Texas, enjoy. Um, it's going to be 80 next week, but it was what, 25 last week. So it changes a lot. Um, little fun story I'm gonna tell you about this photo shoot. This was a marketing photo shoot that I was doing to promote hunting, of course. It was and when I rolled up, and these two gentlemen in the frame actually work for Texas Parks and Wildlife. They are our outdoor education, hunting educators. They were just chit-chatting to themselves, getting ready for the day for us to do the shoot. And the sun came through, and I just got photo crazy at that time. I mean, it's all about the light. You know how that is. Um, Interesting fun fact. I do start all my photo shoots off in aperture priority mode. Um, I've been doing this so long, I change my settings all the time, but that's always if it's an outdoor shoot. If it's an indoor shoot, that's a different story. But if it's an outdoor shoot, I'm usually on aperture priority. And then because it just depends. If I want shallow depth of field, I'll start at 2.8. And I'm not really worried about my shutter speed as long as it's not going below what I can handhold. It just depends on the looks I'm wanting to do. And I don't really, at this point in my career, I don't really even put a lot of thought in changing them when I do it because I just remember, okay, I want to do this and look, I want to go. So I'll change my settings quickly. However, if the environment is pretty static, I will go back to manual mode. It just depends. But I always start off in aperture priority. Um, State parks. So, like I said, we have 90 state parks and growing. We talked about that earlier. Um, we Some of y'all might not have been here, but we received a lot of money from our legislature last year, so we're increasing our state parks. Um, Been around for 100 years, so I don't really need to go that much into this slide, but we've been around. Here we go. So book early. If you want to stay overnight, some parks do sell out up to 6 months in advance. So I would really recommend if you're coming from out of state, plan ahead, get those dates booked in advance. Um, a lot of times parks have special events on seasonal things. They do keep a calendar on every state park so you can see what they're going on, or follow them on Facebook or Instagram. We do have roughly 200 social media sites for Texas Parks and Wildlife. So every state park has a Facebook page, an Instagram page, including some of our programs as well. So like Hunter Ed, or paddling trails, so there's a lot of social media content out there that I have to provide for. We do get a lot of folks like you guys submitting to that. So that's a great way if you want to get your photos published or online through Texas Parks and Wildlife. It's not on here, but I can leave it. Whitney Bishop is our social media coordinator. So if you've got some fun stuff that you want to share, it may not make the magazine, but sure in the heck and get on our social media site, and we have millions of views every day. So that's a great way to get your stuff seen. These are just some random shots. I picked them just literally out of random. It doesn't really mean anything other than fact, here you go. I am on some of these, you can see where I'm putting my metadata down there so you can see what my f-stop was and whatnot. But Tyler State Park on my left here is a great place in the fall. Caprock Canyon's up toward the panhandle of Texas. And McKinney Falls is literally my office. It's in my backyard. That was just nice reflection. I like photos that have a lot of texture to them. It just makes it more interesting. And it was kind of I did that as there was a photo that sold for like $16 million online and it was just a blurry shot of water. And I said, oh, I can go do that. So that was my my spoof to that. Um, this is this is a great place. This is now open as a state park. I didn't know if you know that, Linda, but you can access that park now. So
Good. Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful area, very pristine. Um, yeah, it's absolutely stunning. This is up in the northeast of Texas, Eisenhower State Park. Great park, big park. A lot of photo opportunities. Not too far from if you fly into Dallas to get up there. It's not a hard drive at all. Um, Up in the top right corner, that's Big Bend Ranch State Park. Sadly, that building is no longer there, but that was called the Contrabando movie set. They made a movie way back when. Some buildings are still there, but that one's not. Have you ever done a show on night photography?
Yes. Many
Okay.
times. Yes. I've
Okay.
done even on West Texas. So
Okay.
yeah.
So the particular that image, it's about 27 different images. I went the long image route, well, I mean long exposure route. So they were probably 5.5, 6 minutes long. The first frame I went in and light painted the building. I got Walmart candles and I was like turned them on and that's what was lighting up the inside. I knew the moon was going to be coming from the right at a certain time of the day, kind of giving it a little bit more glow on the ground. And of course, I knew where the North Star was. And then so I did my first frame, looked at it, looked great, and then I used my intravalometer. I'm assuming most people know what that is. And I just set it just to repeat and keep on going until it was about an hour and a half. I think that was the length of time to do that shot. So, but Pills is a great app people use now to set up those shots to know exactly how they need to set up their settings. People ask me all the time, what's my favorite state park? These are my kids. They're much older now. They're 25 and 23. But picking your favorite park is like picking your favorite kid. You really can't. It just depends on the time of the year of the park that makes it very unique. Every park has its own unique feature or whatever. Fun fact about this particular image, I made it's a lot higher up the hillside than it looks, but they were complaining because they were teenagers at the time. But so I made them walk up and walk past me a half a dozen times or more to get the shot. But actually, National Geographic Traveler picked that one up to do a full page spread on that, which was nice. So, yeah. So, like I said, for state parks, we do a lot of different publications. Of course, we have a social media presence, but we publish a state park guide every year. Those are two examples on the left. That one particular image on the left with the girl flying the kite, I call that Kite Girl. That was planned, but it came out much better than I thought it would. It just all the pieces fit together. I just made her run by a couple times while those are her grandparents were standing in the background, and that's what came out of it. The one to the right of that one, the kids, that was directed toward the millennials. Those are all social media influencers that they volunteered. We didn't pay them. They volunteered, and some of them are actually doing pretty good. The one in the middle of the Christmas in the Parks is actually just a publication. We just promote Christmas every year, and the ones on the right are rack cards. If you know, like when you go to a hotel and you see the rack cards, we do that for every state park. So they're throughout different parts. So moving forward, we are media. And there is a lot of news that comes out of a state agency. I do all that. Um, so this is just kind of a swath of different types of things that I do. So, like I said, there's political news, natural disaster, special events, just general news, and of course, social media. Um, so, Texas is a big state. A lot of things happen, um, and I get a front row seat a lot of times. Uh, this is a slide from my original. It's just woods and water. I'm just going to just do general beauty shots. Um, this particular image on the left, the bracken ferns, those are in Bastrop State Park. I shot that at a super wide f-stop. It's a 2 second image. I think if I remember, I probably had to put a neutral density filter on there in order to get that. And I did the ISO at 100. As far as shooting water, here's some just tips which probably you guys know, but y'all can look through this. One thing I did is kind of a neat deal. If you have a subject in the water, if you could really slow down your shutter speed, and let's say you can get that water moving, but your subject still, like within that frame, that really highlights that subject in a nice way. Does that make sense, guys? I think I have an example to show you. I do a lot of drone photography for the agency. If any of you guys don't do drone work, it's kind of addictive. It's a lot of fun. In order to do it commercially, you have to have a Part 107 license through the FAA, and you have to take a test. But as a hobbyist, and if you're not planning on commercially doing it, then you don't need that license. But it's a nice thing to have. Um, so in the top left-hand corner up here, that is a shot of a shrimp boat, and it's called Powderhorn Ranch. It's going to be a new state park. They're developing it now. But if you notice, the water is nice and kind of moving, but the boat is obviously still. It just has a really nice look for it, especially even the one down at the bottom with the rocks and the cotton candy water. People like that. Moving on. So, I did mention earlier, we do have a TV show, which I help contribute to. I'm basically a B-roll guy because my main priority for the agency is the still images, or they call me a single framer, but I do a lot of their drone work, and I also help produce in the back of our TV show. Oh, by the way, that's every Sunday morning on PBS at 9:30. You can watch it. Uh, However, we do have a YouTube channel with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos. They're all categorized out. You can see right here from the slide. You can just look at them. But we produce in the back of the show called a postcard, and basically that's a 2 minute to 3 minute video, and then they start to do credits over it. If y'all ever watch CBS Sunday Morning, at the end of the show they have the credits. That's basically what we do. And and just so you know, this is the people of Texas and Parks and Wildlife. I do environmental portraits of everybody every year. We do a thing called employee recognition awards. Generally, photography wise, I usually shoot them with a very shallow depth of field. If any of you guys do portraiture work, that's kind of, you're usually shooting at 2.8. Um, you got to really think about the foreground and background and when you're doing these things, and be engaging. I think when you're photographing people, the most important thing is to have them be comfortable, because if they're not going to look comfortable on film. So you really need to learn to connect with people, make them feel comfortable to get the shot you want. And folks, I think that's it. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Let me see. Let's see. I didn't see any questions in here. Um, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I know you don't want to say what your favorite park is, but I'll make it easy on you. What's your favorite park in winter?
Oh,
By the
winter?
se by the season, it gives an idea of different
Maybe a
options.
Pacific Spring or something, but winter? No.
Winter.
Oh my gosh.
I know what I want you to say.
No, it's gonna be Caddo Lake.
In winter, really?
Oh, because there's a lady that's from Caddo. Because you get the steam on the water, you're not getting chewed up by mosquitoes. It's not crowded. It make well late fall. Well, winter for them, December, like mid-December.
Yeah.
Even Tyler State Park, I love during the fall.
So you're saying late fall for Tyler State Park. I
Or
don't know.
or Lost Maples.
Ooh, that's an idea. I was waiting for you to say Cap Rock, snow, bison. Come on, you can't beat that.
Yeah, that's a good one too, I have to admit. So, yeah. It's just it's all over the place.
That's just it. I mean, there's a lot of people that are not from Texas and they're thinking, well, this isn't really something that they might venture over. But that is the cool thing about being in Texas. There are so many different little little niches. If you want, if I mean, I ventured to East Texas a few years ago, not realizing that we actually get autumn color. And it was just eye-opening. I grew up in South Texas, so I'm used to flat, dry, brown. And when I went to East Texas, I did Tyler State Park, and I did my favorite, I think one of my favorite state park experiences was at Bob Sandlin State Park.
Oh, yeah.
And, I didn't know we got mushrooms and colorful leaves and, just these beautiful, gentle trails. So there's just a lot of diversity in the state. And I'm going to, you know it already, but there,
Well, I do, like you said, I do like East Texas in late fall because there's not as many mosquitoes. The weather, the humidity is not as much. So that's kind of really why I lean toward that part of the state during that time of the year. But don't get me wrong, there's during the
there's so
fall,
many.
everything's great. But a lot of people
Yeah.
don't realize Texas is 268,000 square miles with over 3,000 lakes, bays, rivers, and estuaries. So, and there's so many things to photograph in Texas. Um, yeah. So
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. It's kind of, what are you interested in? And I think that's why I tend to when I travel, I try to get out of the state. I want to see a lot outside. And a lot of my very close friends are campers. And they're like, we have so many different things to see in Texas. We don't need to go outside the state. So, and there's some truth to that. All right. There was a comment in here and now I've lost it, but basically you have the greatest job in the world. And I know that you know that. I know that. But it's
so
nice to see our friends from Michigan know that or
fun
think that.
fact, in 100 years, there's been less than six photographers because we
Mhm.
don't need. And that's kind of a great legacy. And you know what's really neat for me is that I'm leaving a legacy. I mean, honestly, because I'm creating a historical document of our state during these last 25 years, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a neat responsibility because I do look at it
Yeah.
as I do really look at it as a responsibility in what I'm doing. So and it goes into and actually we have a state library that these images go into permanently.
Okay. Guess I didn't know that. Where is
Right.
that library? The
Uh, I,
where?
I don't know where it is. All I know is the admins puts all the publications, everything they whatever it is that we produce has to go and be filed in a state warehouse somewhere forever.
Oh, interesting. Well, I know there's an archive library, so we might have
I'm
to
sure it's
like
down.
put.
I think it's the one that's off by the courthouse or the federal building. You know what I'm talking about? Is it off Lavaca?
Hmm,
I don't
don't
know.
know.
I can find out for you.
I should know. I was just curious. Um, Let me see if there's any questions in here. It's like just me. It's the Chase and Linda show. Not any questions. Okay, I lied. Mika's got one. She says, I know you mentioned you use Photoshop. How much editing do you typically do?
A lot. For every hour I shoot, I'm doing at least 1 hour of editing.
Okay. Um,
So if I'm on an 8 hour, I mean, I do a lot. And there's so, when you shoot raw, that there's not a lot going on. And, with I've been using Topaz a little bit more. I'm kind of getting addicted to that. It's kind of a love-hate thing, but it's okay. And the new AI tools they're using. And this is one thing I want to point out. When I'm shooting news, I'm limited. I can't, other than cropping and exposure, but then I would lose the integrity of the photo. I can't do any other editing than that.
I was going to ask you because, a lot of your work is kind of, well, in the magazine, do you have
Yes,
the
it's
way
a
to dress it
yes.
up and clean it up and get rid of twigs if it's at a bird's face?
I don't like
But
that stone.
okay,
I don't like this. Move. Yes.
I would not have thought that, so I'm glad
Maybe
I
that's
asked.
editorial, but if it's for news, then no.
No, okay. Alden's question is, has the work slowed down at all over the last 15 years or so? It seems like you have so many assignments each year, more than once a week. Or that's a question, more than once a week? Are you out on the road every week?
It ebbs and flows. Sometimes, my slowest times of the year are January, late December, earlier January. It starts picking up, mid-February, and then my hair's on fire all the way through October. Um, but like I said, I do about 50 assignments for the magazine, another 100 for the agency, and some of them are really quick, headshots, executive headshots type stuff. So it's not like I'm traveling. Um, but um, and you would think a deer looks like a deer. Why is I'm going to go photograph a new deer? Because they're always evolving these stories and something's different. And we're constantly trying to change
Mhm.
the editorial content, so we'll have new stuff. Does that make sense?
Um, how many miles do you think you travel a year?
I estimate I've done about 600,000 miles, so I do on an average 30,000 miles a year. Not a lot.
Okay, that's not,
Not,
I'd
not
put on
much.
that. I
I
think
mean,
I'd put on many miles myself.
well,
Okay.
I know in November and December I did 7,000 miles on my car. I went to Big Bend 3 times. And then I went to the Valley once, and then I went to Corpus once, and then I went to Galveston, and then I went to Dallas. So if
Yeah.
you do math on that, that's insane.
So are you collecting like cool like I don't know, do you have like a weird collection of stickers or
I
pins or
just
something?
started my sticker collection. Because in the back of my truck, like I told you, I have that where I keep my equipment. It's stainless steel, and so I'm starting to put stickers. Like I was interlingual, I like that sticker. I'm sticking it on there, So I'm starting to do my stickers.
Very cool. Um, Alden's question is, why do you prefer Photoshop over Lightroom? Or do you prefer it?
Because I'm old school and I didn't change.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair question.
I mean,
Um,
my photo editor just looks at me and she just rolls her eyes at me and goes, "Really, you need to change." I said, "No." Don't get me wrong. It's just I mean,
it's
I've
easy.
used
I mean, you know it.
it's just
Yeah,
out of my comfort zone, and I need to learn it. When you've been doing what I've been doing for so long, you do get not bored is not the right word, but you look for new challenges. So that's why I started doing more video. That's why I became a drone pilot. Just to really, and you get re-inspired, and so you got to figure out ways to make it fun, and
yeah.
create projects.
Let's see. Kathy wants to know, will all the state parks be open in the Rio Grande Valley in March? She is the one that's coming from Idaho.
Not unless Elon Musk rocket lands on one of them. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't not be open. They've never had any problems with. Are you talking about because of the border stuff, or what are you talking about?
I don't know that she has any question. It was just,
I'm a.
Kathy is a birder. She loves birds. And the last time she was here, she didn't have time to go down to the Rio Grande Valley. So this trip, she's making a point.
I am a super huge fan of the RGV, as we like to call it. You said you're from South Texas too, correct? Where were you from?
But I am not from the RGV. I'm from South Texas. The RGV to me is the valley. It's not South Texas. I'm from LaSalle County.
Oh yeah,
So
I'm going there tomorrow or on Friday.
why?
A friend of mine owns a ranch down there between Tilden and Cotulla.
I'm from Catula.
Oh,
I bet
okay,
I might know. We'll talk later.
okay. So, so,
The
um,
world is very
but
small.
no, the
Mhm.
Rio Grande Valley, there's a lot of great opportunities there. A lot of great birding opportunities. Yes, you'll have fun.
I can't, yeah, I can't imagine that they would be closed unless something really, really horrible happens. Okay, Andy's question is, I love it. Do you rub elbows with other famous photographers like Joel Sartore, or are y'all a solitary species?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, Kind of solitary. I mean, we know who we are. He doesn't know who I am, but I know who he is. But eh, it's a mix. I'd say we're solitary a little bit. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the nature of the work too, and being in nature, you kind of don't, you know. I like shooting alone a lot. Okay,
Now,
so
when I do stuff for the TV show, we go in groups of 2 to 3 because there's more involved.
okay, cool. Janet's question is, do you ever fly instead of drive to a destination?
You're going to be really jealous, but we have our own plane and helicopter. So yes, I've spent many times hanging off the edge of a helicopter and going, but it's usually in relation to a law enforcement activity. Um, but I but if I had to, I could request the plane to take me, but that's usually not within the scope, really.
Really, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, don't be wasting my tax dollars. Okay, Alden's question is, he uses the Z7. You mentioned earlier how it's not very responsive. I'm curious how it handles for you compared to the Z9. In my experience, the focus can't can be a bit delayed off at time. You don't have a Z9, do you?
I don't. You do.
Okay, I do.
No, I held one when I was down doing whooping cranes last year. Oh, fun fact, I recommend if you're birders to go do that. And it's in
Yeah,
March, I believe, right? Um, and if you've never photographed whooping cranes, we can talk about it later if you want, but they're a lot of fun. But as far as
yeah,
the Z7 to me, um, it does great for video. I even bought a nice housing for it to do that type of stuff. But for general shooting, it was just a battery drain on me, and it just felt I didn't I was having issues because you're looking through the viewfinder and it's a digital image. It's not the actual glass image. So that was a little uncomfortable for me. So, but I do hear that the new digital, the mirrorless Nikons are better. But I hear Sony kills everybody. I hear Sony's the one to go to.
Mm,
Sorry.
I'm gonna argue with that. Okay, so okay, I like this question. Jamie wants to know if you're out in remote areas, do you have a satellite phone for safety purposes?
No, and I've asked for one, but they said the new. Okay, I'm gonna tell you a little story. So this is gonna be a lot of fun. Earlier this year, I floated the Rio Grande for 5 days for on assignment, and it was probably the most remote I've ever been. And the new iPhone 16 has a satellite function on your phone to text if you can't do anything. So I thought we were golden. So I got on my phone in Langtree before I set off to go on my trip, and it worked great. But when I got out because of the hills and the terrain or whatever, nothing. I had no communication for 4 solid days. None.
That that's kind of scary. Um, okay, so let me go back to Alden. I'm sorry, he's a slow typist. What's your primary camera then? I remember you listing them, but I don't know
Oh,
that
the Nikon D6.
Nikon D6. Okay. Um, Lisa's question is, any tips on how we can get our Texas State Park photos featured on the park's social media pages?
Yes, her name is Whitney Bishop. I her name is in the list.
Whitney. Or Whitney. Okay.
And if you're willing to share, then she's willing to provide. She's always looking for content. They're always doing something. And you got to remember, we have 200 social media accounts. It just depends now our general main ones, that's the one that's going to get the most action. But and every state park has their own administrator, but she oversees all of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Does
And
that
I
help?
guess too, yeah, I mean, and two, Lisa, if you're thinking Instagram, which is kind of like the most common place to put your photos, use their hashtags. That helps them find you. And that's true for almost any page that does features. Okay, so Alden, he wants to know, how did you get your job? You know, the whiskey bottles that, you have to give
No,
someone.
no. Well, this was 2005, so I'm trying to remember. So I owned a couple of photography studios in Texas. They were running just fine. As a matter of fact, they were basically running me ragged. I was ready to look for a change, and I got online one night, and it said Texas Parks Wildlife was hiring for a photographer. And I said, "Oh, that's the closest to National Geographic I'll ever get. This is fantastic." And um, so I'd owned my own businesses for 10 years before then. I haven't applied or worked for anybody since forever, right? I didn't have a resume. I didn't have really a portfolio per se, and the job was closing like in 2 days. So I called up and they asked, you had to have a college degree. So I had to call up my university. I said, listen, I need to get my transcript. And they go, well, you still owe $1,100. You have a whatever. And I didn't know I still owed them money. I don't know how they even got my diploma originally. So I had to pay $1,100 to get my transcript just to go apply for the job. And I couldn't mail it because it would be closed before I got there. So I drove it up to HR, which I lived in San Marcos at the time. Um, I had my packet. I went up to HR, dropped it off to the lady. She goes, "Oh, this is a popular position. There's been over 260 applicants. I go, oh, my gosh. Well, just so happened that one of the guys that worked in the marketing department, we went to the same church together, and he happened to whisper in the hiring manager's ear, "Hey, this guy's pretty good. You might at least, whatever." And I got an interview, luckily, and they asked me an interesting question. They said, "Hey, do you know the difference between a largemouth bass and a smallmouth bass?" And I'm or a Guadalupe bass. I'm sorry, it's a little bit different. And I go, you mean like the jawline? Because they didn't want to ask me about photography because it was already evident that I already knew how to do that. But I answered the question correctly to the point where, oh, okay, he understands that. So I got the job, and that's happened ever since. But I had to
That's a
sell
brilliant.
my business. So I sold my business. I put them up for sale and sold them. So
Yeah. And so you've been there how many years?
20 years,
I'm sorry.
20.
20 years, yeah. Okay. But first of all, Chase, thank you for doing this. I almost failed to thank you. Like I said, you didn't know me, but now you're not going to get rid of me, and you just need to be okay with that. All right. Next week, Greg Johnson, a recipient of Travel Photographer of the Year award, whose work has been published by Travel and Leisure, National Geographic Travel, and Condé Nast, will be here to share his presentation, Philosophy of Travel Photography. Until next time, go out and create something beautiful. And I hope that we see you again soon.